Testing, is this thing on? Yes, it is. It's episode 113 of Stand Up. Hi, everybody. I am Pete Dominic. Joining me today on the show, I've got CNN commentator S.E. Cupp and cult expert, former cult member, Steve Hassan. You're going to like this one. I promise you that. I'm Pete Dominic. It's time to stand up with me right now. Hello, friends, and thank you for joining me. Thank you for supporting me. This show is now on daily, everybody. You could support this show with a paid subscription for as little as $5. We have, let me see, I think it's 584 paying subscribers, but I want to try to get to at least 600 by the end of the week. Some days you get several, some days you get one. Every once in a while, you don't get new subscribers. It's usually on the weekends. But I want to try to get as many as we can this week, and the goal is low. It's only 16 to get to 600. So, 586. 586! Paying for the podcast and the work every day that I'm pumping out. Every day. Talking to 2, 3, 4, sometimes more. Sometimes just one guest, but usually more than one. And getting the best experts you can find on all the important issues that matter to you. This week, I've got a couple of ideas that have come through listeners. So if you have an idea for a guest, then by all means, send that person my way. I'd love to chat with them, most likely. And so today I've got S.E. Cupp and Steve Hassan, and very happy to have both of them on the show. I had a fantastic conversation with S.E. Cupp, who I go way back with. She is a regular commentator on all of the cable networks over her history. She's kind of been a mainstay. She was at Fox News, then MSNBC's The Cycle, then CNN's Crossfire, and now she hosts her own show on CNN called S.E. Cupp Unfiltered. We've always been cool. I've always liked her. We haven't always agreed on a number of important issues, but she's always been funny and cool and smart. Always enjoyed our conversations. So happy to have S.E. Cupp joining me, and also really happy to have Steve Hassan on for the first time. A couple of weeks ago, I interviewed subscribers who had lost people to conspiracy theories, to QAnon, and one of them, Derek, who I hope is listening, suggested I talk to Travis View as one of the three guys from the QAnon Anonymous podcast, and we had a great conversation, Travis and I. While preparing for him, I discovered Steve Hassan's work, and then Travis actually mentioned him, I think, during our interview, and I was like, I got to get this Steve Hassan on the show, and I did, and it was well worth it. Hoping to do part 2 with him this week, because we only got about a half an hour to talk, but this conversation is so good and so important, and Steve is a very helpful, smart, thoughtful, hardworking, intelligent guy. freedomofmind.com to help you get out of your family member, your friends, to get out of the crazy cults that they've fallen into. You're not going to want to miss that. Steve Hassan and S.E. Cupp on episode 113. I hope you're doing well. I hope you are hanging in there. It still continues to be a very strange time, and I've realized now that nothing is ever going to go back to normal, is it? I mean, I don't want to go back to normal for a whole host of reasons, but we're not going to go back to normal, are we? I mean, how crazy and challenging is the next year in economics alone going to be, much less if you're a black person out bird watching? Did you see that? Went viral? Like 30 million people have watched this woman in Central Park in New York City accuse a Harvard-educated guy who's like on the board of the Autobahn in New York bird watching. You saw the video. I don't have to describe it. But between that and then there was a horrible death of an unarmed black person by a police officer who just kept his knee on the neck of this guy. If you haven't seen that video, it was a real tough day yesterday in the world of racial injustice, and especially difficult for people who are black. I mean, it's just that much worse, that much harder to get over. I mean, those of us that are really concerned about these issues, we worry about them, we advocate against them, but you know, we can kind of move on and not have to worry that you're going to be pinned down by a police officer, like this and treated like this, or be called, have the police call on you for just breathing and being. And so it's just that was a tough. It's been a tough 48 hours in racial injustice. These videos, of course, going viral. So it's there's a lot to say about that. And we'll be talking about that. I'll be talking about that with guests on the show this week. I'm sure didn't get to it today with either of the guests because it just wasn't on the topic. And I obviously always want to talk with people of color about issues that mostly directly affect people of color. Same for women and other minorities. Discriminated against populations, of course, want them represented in the conversation when I'm talking about them. So I am doing well, hanging in there. Got a lot done over the weekend. Had to spend 2 hours in the ER with Julia, who thought she broke her arm. She is okay. She is more than okay. She's thriving. She's hanging out with her friends. So all is okay on that front. Thank you for asking. But a lot going on here at home and a lot of work to do. And I appreciate you supporting that work. So let me know who you want to hear. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is episode 113. A lot of crazy shit happening, but I want to get right to it now. I say get right to it. I've been blabbering on for a few minutes. I apologize. Hopefully some of you are listening in double time or you just fast forward right through it to get to the guest. Here's my conversation with S.E. Cupp. You should be following her on Twitter. You should be reading her at the Daily News. Her columns at the Daily News are very good. And, of course, watch her show on CNN, S.E. Cupp Unfiltered, on Twitter, by the way, at S.E. Cupp. Here it is right now, and I'll put out the video soon as well. And here we are with S.E. Cupp, old friends. I don't know how far we go back, but back to the early cable news days.
Totally, at least a decade.
Yeah, Fox News, Red Eye, maybe?
Probably, yeah, or like Sirius. I mean, who knows? We've been everywhere, you and I.
I feel like at the beginning, whenever I met you, at least, I was sniffing around you. I'm like, is she going to bite me?
Why?
Well, you're an intimidating conservative, and I was a rookie liberal, and I knew that I could never go toe to toe with you. So if I had to, I would pivot because I was intimidated for sure.
Wow, I didn't know I had that effect. I always, because at that point I would have been in like my late 20s, early 30s, and I was always surrounded by much older people in media. And so I always felt like people who were of a similar age, I was really grateful and like relieved that someone else that of my generation was around. So I can't imagine you feeling intimidated by me.
Well, yeah, no, definitely, for sure. At least I didn't want to tangle with you. Like I always know where my strengths lie. So it's like, don't step on this or that with her because she probably will eat me alive in some argument or discussion or debate. So, but it's not your fault. It was my own insecurities. But, you know,
I'm going to take this to mean you always thought I was very prepared, which I like.
Well, definitely thought you, at the least, I thought you were prepared, but I thought you were qualified and articulate and I thought you were fierce. I always thought you were fierce. You had this fierce, I've never seen you really back down in a timid way. I've seen you back down, concede an argument, but not back, you know, like you're so good on, for example, on Real Time, like a place that's the real deep end.
That's a tough show to do. I also love doing that show and I've done it for years, because I like being challenged in a way that I know is going to be smart and usually safe. You know, no one's going to come after my looks and stupid shit like that. So I know there's going to be like a safe, even playing field. And I like those conversations. And Bill and I have a great relationship and rapport and respect for one another. So I always, plus they repeat like 6 times, so you get a ton of exposure. So I always love doing that show, and it's such a well-produced show. I just know I'm in good hands, no matter how it goes, whether the audience is going to love what I have to say or not. I just know I'm in good hands.
I did it once. It was a highlight of my career. And of course, the best thing is, you know, first class airfare and totally. The hotel they put you up at. You're just sitting there celebrity watching. And we're like, how do I get this? It's a great, great gig. But I mean, totally. I think that you being in that space and in a show like that is obviously good. And there's not probably enough of that. But you mentioned, you know, the wrath that you might get from viewers, from listeners. And one of the reasons you're here today, just because you and I connected on social media as people do the other night, I saw something that you shared and loved it and shared it. And then I saw a lot of the comments that came after, and you just mentioned people not going after your looks. And it's one of the things I wanted to talk with you about, because that was just one tweet I happened to see because I shared it. So I was on it. So I was like, oh my God, will it ever end? And I wanted to ask for you, are in particular somebody I know has been attacked incessantly for your appearance and things like that. And I want to know how it's been. Is it ever stopped? Does it ever slow down? Is it every tweet? Every comment, every appearance?
Yeah. But listen, I hate to say you get used to, that kind of misogyny in some cases, death threats in other cases, just ad hominem. But you get used to having to deal with it. You learn how to deal with it. So for my own self-care, I don't read all the comments. I don't check the email that fan mail gets sent to, because it's almost never fan mail. It's almost never from fans. And I've got pretty high sort of settings on my DMs and stuff like that, so that really only people that I know and like can talk to me privately that way. So I've just kind of found ways to tune out a lot of the noise. But look, you can't completely escape it. And so whether it's someone on Twitter talking about, my bra size or my IQ or my glasses or an argument, you see it. But I'm not out here doing this to be adored. It's the wrong business for that. Certainly you get fans by being an opinionated person in the media on politics, but I feel like I'm first and foremost a journalist. That's how I came up. And so what every journalist knows is it is not our job to be liked, especially not by people in power. So, whether it's Trump tweeting at me or some of his, supporters, it just doesn't really faze me that much anymore. But to answer your question, yes, it's constant.
Does it still, if you do see it, is it scary? Is it disruptive even? I mean, even one of those tweets would throw me off for the whole day. I mean, when I did Joe Rogan's show, people came after me for a long time because we got into it over guns, as you and I have. Yeah. And I'd love to talk with you about that at some point again. But the threats in the comments were all very personal about my career. You're stupid. You should kill yourself. Your career is over. And this was right after Sirius let me go. I was certainly sensitive, but it was a huge opportunity. But SC, my point is, not one in those thousands of hate emails and comments was I ever threatened sexually, or was I ever, were my looks ever referred to? The difference there. Yeah,
there's a particular, it is different. And I don't like to complain or act like I'm part of a victim class, but there is a particular brand.
I'm bringing it up, though. I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, look, you have to acknowledge. I mean, it's very obvious. There's a particular brand of vitriol, that is used against women in politics. It's very specifically there's a specific kind to conservative women, and I'm not saying liberal women don't get it too. They do, in a different way. But being a conservative woman in media, you have to take a lot of crap, a lot of awful, misogynistic, threatening, violent rape fantasies, kind of stuff that is gross and awful. And you think, my God, I hope my parents never see this. My God, I hope my kid never sees this. All of that that comes along with it. But at the same time, this, we're public people. We put our opinions out there. It's part of the job. Maybe it shouldn't be, but it is. And so I just keep my head down, keep moving along. Obviously, there are some situations where my friends at the FBI, who I have on speed dial, people should know, get a call real quick to go in and chase something. They always find it and they always fix it. So there are some occasions that need, adults.
That's great.
Adults
That's
intervention.
That's great to hear.
Usually I just ignore it.
That's great to hear. And it would also stand to reason that if you had any wits about you, you would know better than to threaten someone as prominent as yourself, because you happen to be someone who's prominent in the media, but you also talk a lot about national security stuff, as we do in the media. Therefore, you have access to and friends with people. And the point, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So the point is, like, I threaten you, you immediately just forward it on. And it could be as little as a few minutes before I get a phone call from somebody. Yes. I don't know how it works or what's legal.
It's a few minutes.
Yeah, that's
trust me.
Awesome.
It's real quick. No, and I don't say that threateningly like I'm somehow privileged. I've just been through this so many times. I know what are actionable threats. I know what deserves the FBI attention and what doesn't. I don't bother them with nonsense. When I send something, they know it's for real. And believe me, they take it real seriously.
Well, I think you should say it threatening anybody who would even consider threatening you. It's like, if you threaten me, you should know you're going to get a phone call, because I'm not just somebody on Twitter. These are my friends. They care about me, and they're going to look into it. So, I wonder how much I was thinking, as I was thinking about sitting down and talking with you about, I want to talk about your whole life and career and obviously a whole bunch of issues. And I only have just so much time. You do. I have all day. What am I going to do? But watch my kids sleep and then head in my garden. No, I wanted to just ask you how much you think media has changed over your career, because you've been a real star for a long time. You've had a very consistent, impressive career at a wide range of media outlets, which very few people do. I mean, you get fired, or I don't think you ever got fired. I think you just kept leaving for better deals and getting promoted. But it's hard to get another one. But you were at Fox, you were at Glenn Beck's thing, you were at MSNBC, you've been at CNN, I think, the longest now. My question, I could talk to you just about your career in media in general, and I'd love to get you to trash everybody, but that's never going to happen. But how much have you seen media change, and specifically in terms of the divisive nature? Has it gotten far, far worse? Has it always been this bad? Was he a game changer?
Yeah, Trump has certainly changed things in the past 5 or so years. But I will say, look, it's always been divisive. When I was at Fox, when I was younger, I think there was I got just as much hatred. I got just as much, hate mail and stuff from the left as I get now from the Trump right. And it was just as gruesome, graphic. That really hasn't changed. Just the people, where it's coming from, has changed. But we stood up for each other in a way in the media that I'm seeing less and less of now. So I remember, Barack Obama kind of shit on Fox for a little bit. And Jake Tapper, who was at ABC at the time, came up publicly and said, no. Fox News is a real news channel. You might not like some of their coverage, but he stood up for Fox. Other pool reporters stood up for Fox when the White House at that time tried to kick Fox out of the pool. There was more of a sense of, okay, politics is pervasive, but we are all media together. And that has completely shifted. You'll see it occasionally where someone, a reporter will stick up for this reporter, mostly because Trump is coming at them.
Right.
But the rivalries between Fox and MSNBC and CNN and now, OAN, and it's there's less of a camaraderie. And that's disappointing to me as someone who really supports free, fair, powerful press. We're all in this together, really. And we should be backing each other up against kind of a united cause, against a united enemy, really. And we're just not doing that as much. And I think that's going to be real deleterious.
The united enemy, is that Trump?
Yeah, it's Trump's war on the media and his administration's war on the media, and the Republicans who've taken that up to, turn this around so that everything Trump says is right and everything we say is wrong reflexively. I think that's real dangerous.
For sure. I think it's the most dangerous thing. I'm glad to hear you say that. As long as he's going to keep saying enemy of the people about mainstream media journalists, people who have editors and have to, print corrections and what journalists do, and that's never going to stop. So you're also, you always fashioned yourself, and I think it's fair to say, in terms of the political spectrum, a conservative, but you've never supported in any way, as far as I can remember, Donald Trump's candidacy for anything. I haven't seen every comment you've said or heard or written, but I feel like you've been pretty consistent on Donald Trump. And I wonder how that is, again, fared for you personally, because there's only a handful of kind of conservatives in the media that have been able to even continue to have their career if they've denounced Donald Trump. I mean, Charlie Sykes prominently has talked about this and written about this. If you're a conservative and you don't support Donald Trump, then you're not going to get the ratings you need to survive in TV and radio. You're one of the few who certainly has, and I think thrives. You know, you're one of the more respected people in media now. And I wonder how that's changed for you, how it's affected you. Have you ever supported Trump as candidacy?
No, no, is the short answer. And no, I would call balls and strikes in the beginning and say, look, I hated this, but this was actually okay. Or the media's got this wrong when they talk about Trump. But no, I mean, that only worked for so long. Then you have to at some point take Trump as a package deal and say, you can't parse out this policy and this quote, and you get all of him when you sign up for him. And so I've been pretty rigorous in criticizing the president and his cause and what he has done to the Republican Party and what he has done for conservatism, what he's done to the country. That has made for a very lonely, kind of isolated existence. I used to be part of a team, a large team of Republicans, right? And while I could easily be critical of my party, vis-a-vis Todd Aiken, stuff like that. Yeah. I was a Republican. I was a cheerleader. I was on the team. And I'm clearly not on the team anymore. I'm not on the Democrats team either, although I'm finding myself more and more aligned with my liberal friends on a number of issues.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that just means, I'm kind of alone over here, which is okay. And I'm very lucky that I still do have a platform and a place where I can, survive politically and professionally. But it's been very isolating to be a conservative who does not support the president.
Have your politics changed with the Overton window? Are you still a conservative on a broad range of issues? Do you identify that, or has the fact that all of the conservative policies you've supported have failed, SE, changed your mind?
No, and thanks for putting it that way. So it's funny. I have this joke that I occasionally make where, as we are discussing, I get tons of texts and tweets and emails from people. What happened to you, SE? You've completely changed. You used to be, this great conservative. And I have to be like, Dad, I'm still the same. But that joke is real. And
I had coffee in my mouth.
I have not changed. All my positions are really the same as they were before Trump. I feel like a lot of Republicans have changed because Trump has made them. I will say I have shifted my perspective on a number of issues. I think because Trump has been so badly influential in areas. You mentioned guns. That is one for me. I still consider myself a very strong advocate for the Second Amendment. However, what Trump and Republicans have done on that issue, which has led the NRA, an organization that used to represent my interests, to a place that I no longer recognize and want to associate with.
Really?
I don't think the NRA, and I denounced and quit the NRA maybe a year ago publicly, because it is no longer tenable for me. You're not representing my interests as a gun owner when you won't allow for some common sense solutions that are widely popular, even popular among NRA members, and would rather still grandstand on these issues that just feel completely irrelevant today. So, yes, my perspective has shifted. I won't say really on the core issues, but I think a lot of what Trump has done is bastardize those issues to mean something else. And so I want to stick to, the traditional version of what that all meant and not the hair on fire lunacy that he's sort of made a lot of these issues into.
When you denounced that day, you denounced the NRA, did you just go into your safe room with your son and husband and stay there for a week?
I knew it was going to be rough because that in particular is a crowd that gets very vocal, hostile. But I discussed it with
guns.
my family.
That's the other thing.
And they have well, so do we. But
it's a good point. Yeah, but most of us don't. So it's like I'm more scared of the gun people than I am of the oil people or the banking people or the conservative economic people because, you know, they can threaten me even physically, but I'm not positive they have an arsenal.
I understand. I completely understand, and they are aware of that.
Yeah.
But I talked to my family about it before I did it. I talked to my employer about it before I did it because I knew there might be ramifications that way. And I felt like I had all the support. I talked to other Republicans too. And in Congress and some friends about it. And I felt like I had the support that I needed to feel comfortable doing it. And whatever hell I took for it, I was willing to take. And you know, it wasn't fun, but it was right. And I've always tried to do what felt right so that I could sleep at night, so that I could explain to my son in however many years where I was on X position. And I need that. I need that to live, to feel okay
it's called
in the world.
It's integrity. And
I'm not virtue signaling here. I'm just saying I can't do what I do without feeling okay about it internally. So,
and I think there's a lot of people who can and go on to make a lot of money in media with the similar, background, connections, and experience that you had. You decided not to go that route because of what you just said in terms of integrity, and I think that's awesome.
And you haven't either. I mean, you've made the same calculations, and especially in the world of radio, as you and I both know, you can really play a character for a long time and not have to be an honest person. We've known a lot of those, right?
No doubt about it. Yeah.
So to you as well.
Yeah. The only difference is your show's on CNN. I'm doing a podcast from my garage.
You're the future, man.
I'm just kidding. It's actually, I'm being self-deprecating, but there's a lot of freedom here, and it's and because of the integrity, I think someone like you or myself, people believe you, and they actually want to pay for what you're saying because they actually believe that you believe what you're saying, as opposed to trying to sell ads and trying to get ratings because they have to get millions of people to make the money they make. I only have to get 1,000 or 10,000 people paying is a tremendous amount of money, and you could never exist on that. Where you are in corporate media at CNN or so many other places, you got to get millions of people. So there's a lot of selling out that happens. I wanted to ask you, though, about, in terms of Trump on issues, we can't even talk about him on the issues because he changes a lot and he doesn't really have any principle or policy that he's consistent with. But my problem has always been his moral character. That was my problem when I was asked if I wanted to meet him on The Apprentice. When I was on The Apprentice in 2004 doing stand-up, they're like, do you want to meet him? I was like, oh, does he want to meet us? And he's like, not necessarily. But I'm like, well, I'm fine. I'm just using him for the show, dude. It's on NBC. But your piece in today's Daily News is fantastic. It's titled you have a column there, of course, How Trump Haunts the Dead. Our terrible president's awful habit of attacking people who can't defend themselves. I think in terms of moral character, we can talk about dishonesty. We can talk about insecurity and narcissism. But what is worse than going after a dead person? And you have this is a great piece laying out several people, including many members of the military, who he's gone after they died. Tell me about it.
It doesn't get much worse or lower than that. I mean, forget that he's the president, which adds a whole other dimension because, ostensibly the most powerful man in the world. Just for any person, right? To go after a dead person and their family and drag a dead person's memory through the mud, mock their family, mock their memory for really no gain. There's stuff that he does that gets him real political currency that is gross. This doesn't ever really get him anything. Republicans usually come out and denounce this sort of stuff. You can remember back to Trump mocking John McCain for being a prisoner of war. That did not endear him to many Republicans. As you mentioned, he went after Gold Star families, the family of Khizr Khan, the family of LaDavid Johnson. He went after others who had passed, just like he's going after Joe Scarborough's old staffer,
Seth Rich.
Seth Rich, a DNC staffer who was murdered. Police say he was murdered during an attempted robbery. Trump has retweeted these conspiracy theories that Hillary Clinton is somehow responsible, even at the behest of the family, saying, please stop, to Fox News for perpetuating these conspiracy theories. They're not true. Now the family of Lori Klausutis is asking Trump to stop making these comments, and now is asking Twitter to stop publishing them, because they dealt with this horrific death 20 years ago and have been trying to move on despite these conspiracy theories. And now the president's resurrecting them really for no good reason. They're impolitic. They're not, they're ill-advised in the midst of a global pandemic over Memorial Day weekend. I mean, it's just grotesque. And so, to your point, yes, there is an obvious moral failure. But I also think we should be real honest about what we're seeing here. He is not well. The president is not all there, because an all there, well, healthy, stable, balanced person would not be doing this, would not be suggesting we inject disinfectant into our veins to stave off coronavirus, would not be refusing to take the basic precautions like wearing a mask out in public just because it bothers the press. I mean, this is not healthy behavior. So the president does this, yes, because he's immoral and craven, but I think also because he's not okay. He is not all there.
You write that a lot, that phrase, the president is not well. That's like a thing that
it's
often...
the most clear, concise way to say what is obvious, which everyone wants to tiptoe around. And I have to just keep repeating it because I feel like we need to be jolted out of our numbness to his immorality, his awful rhetoric, his distractions. We are numb to it. And we can laugh it off as Trump being Trump, but this man is not okay. He's not well, and we should be real honest about that.
I forgot to ask you how much time you had. It's 2:30. How much longer can you go?
I'm
okay.
fine.
Okay, so the other thing, you mentioned a lot of, I brought this up, character flaws, and you wrote this great piece, your column at the Daily News, about how he goes after, dead people and their families. But nothing has laid bare his lack of ability to govern than the pandemic, in my opinion. We've seen nothing, in my opinion, but failures. Obviously, he's got a lot of parts of his agenda done in terms of judges and stuff. But in terms of policy, he's got the tax cut, and we can argue about what else. But the pandemic has laid bare his lack of curiosity. And I can't stop thinking about something that he said recently, which I felt like really pulled back the curtain in a way almost nothing else beside the Sharpie gate had, which was, of course, when he used a Sharpie to say that a hurricane was going to a place that it wasn't, so he could be right and meteorologists and science be wrong. Well, this one's also science, and I know you know about it, everybody knows about it, but basically, I don't have it in front of me the exact quote, but he said last week, he said, if we didn't have all these tests, then we wouldn't have all these cases, and maybe we should stop testing. And of course, his interest there is the numbers. And when we could see the numbers, no matter whether it's unemployment or COVID numbers going up, that's bad for him. But scientifically, whether it's a hurricane or this, you have to test. And to me, that was the most naked admission of his lack of interest in governing. There's been almost no planning coming out of the federal government because of him. And I think a lot of the people he's appointed. But what is your take on his inability to govern, specifically as it pertains to the pandemic? And, I don't know if you want to be as bold as saying what you think history will look back and see this president's lack of leadership during this time period.
Well, listen, you can have a lot of things go wrong at the exact worst time and still manage to be okay. Let's say you have an incompetent leader who is at least surrounded by really competent people. Trump is surrounded by competent people, but he doesn't listen to them. And they're only surrounding him as long as they are useful to him. And so the only thing that makes us feel okay during this time, because Trump is clearly incompetent, he doesn't care about the science, as you say. He doesn't get how any of this works, and he's only thinking about his reelection. The reassuring part was that he was surrounded by what I think are a very good group of scientists, except he's trying to cut them down and dismiss them and now get his people to turn on them because they're not saying the things that are politically useful for him. So you've got incompetence, also this group of competent people being undermined and undercut by the principal in this case. And add to that a group of supporters who has turned a matter of health and science into a culture war. They are determined to make this a culture war when it isn't. It doesn't have to be. But there's a culture war everywhere for a lot of these people. And it's the only way that they can navigate sort of political life now.
How do you understand that culture war? As someone who's been inside the conservative movement, part of the conservative movement, you're conservative in so much of your thinking, but you've always been open-minded and had a lot of progressive ideology that was filtered through as well. I mean, how do you see the ideology that is supportive of Trump, that needs that culture war, that needs to fight over a mask and this kind of like, well, what is it?
Right. Well, listen, I think there's a lot of conflating factors. One is you had a population of people who felt ignored for a very long time, worse than ignored, dismissed, talked over, condescended to. Then I think you had this gnawing and gnashing by the far right at expertise. I saw it, 10, 15 years ago when Republicans started dismissing professors, college educated people, right? How dare they tell us how to live our lives? That is now devolved to all experts are bad and on, their liberal elites. And knowing stuff is a political problem, just knowing stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's devolved to this crazy level of like cartoonish hostility that is now just a perpetual blame war. Who can we blame? And it doesn't have to be right. You don't have to have receipts. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to really explain why. Just name the enemy. That's whose fault it is. And it's become so profitable in certain media, circles and politically that it continues. And it's leaving people like me behind because I won't do this. I won't play the blame the experts ad hominem, distrust the science just for the sake of it. I won't do that. But I think for a lot of other folks who are in politics, it's become real de rigueur to just immediately do that, like reflexively without asking any questions. I'll give you an example, actually, from a week or so ago. I was tweeting with, I saw a tweet by Michelle Malkin, someone who I haven't always agreed with, but I think used to be more intellectually rigorous than she has become. Now she's like this vaccine suspicious, anti-Semite supporting, weird kind of troll. But so she tweeted to a defense of Dr. Fauci. Fact check false is all she tweeted about this defense of Dr. Fauci. And I usually don't engage with her because crazy, but I tweeted, what benefit is this? What advantage? What are you doing for your followers by just providing without any evidence why to just trust this person, right, just that you think it's fake? Yep. And she wrote back with some bizarre defense. She was providing her friends who don't trust the corporate shill media like me real information so they could make their own decision. And I wrote back, what information? There's no information. You provide zero information. All you said was fact check false. And so that's where we're at now. All we care about is don't trust this person. I'm not even going to tell you why.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you not to trust this person. And because I'm saying it, that's enough for you to believe it. And that is just, I mean, as a journalist, but also as a conservative and also just as a person, anathema to like everything I grew up with and currently believe. So it breaks my heart.
For the record, I also think that anybody who uses the phrase fact check false anywhere and any, like, I mean, it's terrible on social media, but can you imagine if we were like just chilling by a fire with like a few couples our age? And I said something, and you said something, and I was like, SC, a fact check, false. I think I would, if it were me, I would respect anybody just getting up and go, you know what, we're going to go. We're going to go. That was so douchey and cringy.
Karen, we've had enough. Thanks, Karen, for weighing in.
Poor people, actually, poor thoughtful people named Karen.
I know.
That was a crazy thing, huh? That went like more viral, that lady's video. But I don't know. I can hung up on that. Let me ask you one more, at least here, which is I want to get your take on Joe Biden and the Democratic nomination. Are you surprised? Were you surprised that it's Joe Biden? Where are you at? And you know, what is your advice for him? Just keep sitting there in your basement and don't say anything because Trump is his own worst enemy, or announce your cabinet and nominate Michelle Obama.
Right.
I was arguing with friends today, insiders, if you will, DC insiders, like Michelle Obama is going to be it. I'm like, she would, obviously everybody would love that and she'd be great, but she would never say yes or even be interested. Do you have any inkling otherwise?
No, no, you are right. This is, as you saw in 2016, will be true again, probably even worse in 2020. This is a process that ruins people. It's a process.
The nominating process?
Yeah, with Trump. I mean, specifically against Trump.
Oh, right.
Because remember, I mean, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton had a fairly contentious Democratic primary, and it didn't ruin either of them, right? You know, people who already hated Hillary continued to hate Hillary, but their reputations within their base remained intact. Now, I mean, you've got a whole list, a morgue full of Republicans who ran for president or went into the Trump administration and now are either jokes or loathed by Republicans who support Trump with ne'er a friend in sight. So it's a very violent process to go through this against Trump and all that entails.
He burns you down in a way that I would, when you're saying this, I'm realizing exactly what you're saying is so true, because he will create a conspiracy just on Twitter out of thin air. And, you know, he really could, right? Like, what's a company? I don't know why I'm thinking of Whirlpool washers and dryers, but that came to mind. They used to be made in America. He could be like, Joe Biden and Whirlpool Gate. You know what he did? Is treasonous. And
that's it.
And it would damage him a great deal. But he
and Whirlpool
and Whirlpool too. And he would just be repetitive, just over and over. Whirlpool, Biden, Whirlpool, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, all the Bidens.
Yep. Look, I mean, he just makes it up. He did it to members of his own party, you know, accusing Ted Cruz's dad of being involved in the Kennedy assassination. That's just one. I mean, absolutely.
Any opponent of his before politics.
Yes.
He would make up a conspiracy about them, make up rumor. He probably told women, this is ridiculous of me to say, but he probably told women that men that he wanted to sleep with, that their boyfriend had like STDs and stuff, or that they were accused of domestic abuse. I wouldn't go over there. You know, I don't think you should date him. He's a real monster. He hit his last wife. The guy's like the greatest guy in the world. He just makes stuff up so he can have whatever he wants.
Exactly right. And he did it to members of his own party. He also did it to Hillary Clinton. And look, I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton, but you can't argue that she came out of that election better than she went in. I don't think she did. I think he really damaged her fatally. She also had a lot to do with that. I mean, she didn't help herself much, but you go in there, Joe Biden is going to come out of this, I think, pretty pretty battered and bruised. And I'm not sure he's going to win against Donald Trump. So it's going to be rough. It's going to be way rougher than any of us can even imagine right now.
Yeah.
Because Trump's only going to get more desperate.
Yeah.
So it's going to be ugly. It's going to be really, really ugly.
I think that is one of the only predictions that we can make that is 100% true.
Feel good about it. I feel good about it.
I feel everything is just fine. Everything is great. Your son is 5. Fine. He's there. He's playing. He's healthy. You guys are fishing together. Your Instagram has a lot of you guys fishing. Mm-hmm. You grew up in the outdoors. Healthcare. You grew up. That's your healthcare. Yeah. This is a thing that you've always been interested in, being connected to nature.
For about 30 years or so, hiking, hunting, fishing, just getting outside. It's something my whole family loves to do. And so we love doing with our son. And especially right now, just getting out of the house, getting into nature, doing things that are already socially distant, like fishing.
Yep.
Just feels good. We all need it.
Have you made any discoveries, anything personal development wise during this time? Maybe you learned a new skill. Maybe you got closer with your husband or had more time with your son. What is this is my final personal question. What positive thing has come to SE Cupp during this pandemic?
I'll say, about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, I wrote about this for CNN. It made me, I have one son, and it made me think about wanting another, which I had long sort of decided, no, we're good. This is our family feels complete. But just I know a lot of people have had the opposite feeling, like, oh, thank God I don't have more on top of this. But it made my family feel too small to fight this outsized, threat. And it made me want to expand my family, because I just, family is everything, of course, and we felt that more heightened right now, and just grateful that we all have our health. And so I sit on that. I sat on that feeling, sort of let it marinate for a couple of weeks, and decided, no, we're good. We got a puppy instead. So.
Oh, is that right? Because I saw that dog, a little like Black Lab.
Yeah.
Just go to SE Cupp's Instagram and fall in love with
She's really cute. Dolly Parton is the dog.
Oh, that's a great story too. That you thought about maybe you'd want another kid, decided no, and got a dog.
Yeah, I mean they're not the same, but it felt like a way to expand our family that wasn't going to make me at my age.
They're not the same, and I'm not judging anybody who doesn't have kids. No. I'm glad when people don't have kids, but I've always thought when people compare their animal to my child, it irks me a little bit. I remember when my daughter was first born, and I was showing pictures, and this woman said, "Oh, here's my baby," and showed me a picture of her German Shepherd, and I
don't do it.
I didn't think twice, and I just like, she's got your eyes, and that wasn't kind. I wasn't kind, but I was like, "What are you doing? You're comparing your dog to my human." I'm just saying.
No, don't do it. And it's funny because people now will say, well, with a puppy, the house training and the sleeping and all of that, it's like you have a newborn. Yeah. And I said, yeah, except I love it a lot less. I mean, I had a newborn that I carried for 9 months and also obsessed over. This is not the same. I love this dog. She's great. But
there's a difference between nursing and pumping and kicking a bowl of food at an animal. This one requires more time and maintenance and patience.
Yeah. She's great. She's great. We love her.
That's great.
It's not having another kid.
Well, I've been looking. I saw those pictures. I was checking it out. That's awesome. All right. Well, listen.
Thanks, Pete.
I'll let you go. I appreciate you hanging with me today. It's so great to catch up with you and to talk to you about all this stuff. Let's do it again very soon.
Yeah,
long form SE Cupp is better. No matter what, the worst thing about your show and all cable news is that if you like what you're seeing, it's never enough. It's these blocks and you're doing 5 minutes. That's why I've always loved radio and podcasting. I love to get you in a longer conversation. So thank you.
Well, you're so good at it, Pete. And I'm really grateful that you had me on. I appreciate it. I always love talking to you.
All right. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Bye.
All right. There you go. SE Cupp. Unfiltered is the name of her show on CNN, and follow her on Twitter at SE Cupp. Read her column at the Daily News. Tell her you heard her on the show. That'd be great. She has a very, very big following on social media, and almost 500,000 followers. Let her know that you heard her here. SECuppshow.com, by the way, is her website. Okay, so hopefully she'll be back on. We'll continue to talk about issues and policies and politics and life, because we go back, and it's always a great conversation with her. And then now I want to share with you a new guest who's never been on the show. It's the first time. His name is Steve Hassan. He's got a TED Talk titled "Is Technology Controlling Your Mind?" He also has an organization called freedomofmind.com. It's his company, basically. He's America's leading cult expert, and he has been in all kinds of media. He's been interviewed by a lot of, what I try to do is find the smartest people I can on the issues. And I, if anything I'm good at, it's that. And Steve Hassan is one of them. His book, The Cult of Trump, a leading cult expert, explains how the president uses mind control, is his most recent book. But freedomofmind.com is his website. He has helped so many individuals and families help their loved ones get out of cults and crazy thinking. And we have pervasive epidemic, I'd call it, of conspiracy theorists and true believers led by our always fearless and completely insecure president. Never fearless. Donald Trump. So my conversation with Steve Hassan right now, and I'm hoping to do part 2, but I think you're going to really like this. And I'm very excited to have Steven Hassan joining me. So much to talk with you about, and not nearly enough time. So hopefully we'll get some more time. But thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I thought I'd start with you telling your own story, because I think you have a lot of credibility as an expert in terms of the research that you've done for years now. But your credibility also lies in someone who himself was in a cult. And I think it's important to mention recruited into a cult, because you're a pretty smart cat growing up, honors student. And what I've learned from your work is education and intelligence is not necessarily important. What was your story? How did you get recruited into a cult, and when?
Yeah, and thanks so much for having me on, Pete. And it's a pleasure.
Do this.
And very briefly, I'm 65 years old. I grew up in Flushing, Queens. I might add 1.3 miles from Donald Trump in Queens, and very close to Elmhurst Hospital, where the worst COVID cases in the country started. But I was raised in a conservative Jewish family, youngest of 3 kids, and had no interest in joining a cult or a group of any kind. I was writing poetry and short stories. I was in college at Queens College, and my girlfriend dumped me, and I was sitting in the cafeteria at Queens College, and 3 women pretending to be students approached me and started flirting with me. And that was my entry into the world of mind control cults. I later came to realize that people are situationally vulnerable, especially if they're ignorant about how cults operate. But if breakup of a relationship, death of a loved one, illness, divorce, moving to a new city, state, or country, life cycle events, people are particularly vulnerable. And I need to say this, that with the COVID pandemic and the economic issues, everybody's vulnerable to all kinds of very bad ideas and groups, but it's now coming through us online.
Yes,
so we have
and that's
to
a game.
particularly.
How much of a game changer is it that we have the internet and social media that can recruit versus the style of recruiting that occurred when you joined up with the Moonies, because that
totally.
was person.
I mean, yeah. So just to finish your first question, I dropped out of college, quit my job, donated my bank account, thought that Sun Myung Moon was the greatest man in human history, was the Messiah.
Wow.
He said that democracy was satanic, that we had to infiltrate Congress and government and take over and get rid of democracy, and that theocracy is what God wanted. I actually fasted for Nixon during Watergate, even though I would argue with my father that Nixon was a crook. So I had a 180-degree turnaround in my belief system. I became a right-wing fascist, and I got out after I fell asleep at the wheel of a fundraising van due to sleep deprivation. And after 2 weeks in the hospital, went to visit my sister, at which point my parents did a deprogramming intervention with me, which lasted several days, at which point I realized when I was exposed to Chinese communist brainwashing information, it was like, oh, wait a minute, we do the same thing in the family. And the wheel started turning and I got out. And then I was horrified because I had learned about the Holocaust. I had learned, read 1984. I knew about authoritarianism and was, against it. And now you're meeting me 44 years later, 4 books later. I just got my second master's degree in organizational change and development from Fielding. And I'm trying to update the legal system's perspective on undue influence so people will see there really is a science behind mind control and coercive control.
Well, I want to know all about your efforts there with what the issues are with the legal system and what needs to be done. But before we get there, and if we have time, let's define a cult, because you are an expert who has been referenced by all kinds of different journalists and documentaries and people to examine a whole wide range of different belief systems and cult followings. And so I got to, is there one definition?
So many people have different definitions, but what I think is most useful is, if I may hold up a bad photocopy of my influence continuum.
Yeah, we can screen grab that.
It talks about ethical influence to unethical influence and the criteria. So in ethical influence, you have informed consent, destructive mind control, you're lied to, you're withheld vital information, or the information is deliberately distorted. So you have kernels of truth, but the rest is all twisted. This is about encouraging people to read what they want to read, talk to whoever they want to, and think for themselves. This is about control of information, of saying, don't talk to critics, don't talk to ex-members, fake news, right? News are the enemy of the people, etc. Talks about, narcissistic, pathological lying leaders, cult leaders, and accountable, responsible leadership that, apologizes if they say something that's not true. And so there, in other words, to answer your question, there are healthy cults that we can choose to be involved with and choose to exit, that we may be fanatical, rock band fans or sports fans or even political fans, but we still can think from other points of view, take other information and think about, is there any validity in this other perspective? Because we have our own conscience, we have our own critical faculties, and we're committed to, what's real and what's true. And in my work, I'm so opposed to people who say, we live in a post-truth world. Bull. I say we live in the age of influence, and there are very powerful, wealthy forces wanting to make us confused about what are facts and what are lies and what's true and what's not true. And that deliberately, as I write in The Cult of Trump, are doing psyops or psychological operations deliberately to mind control people, to confuse them, disorient them, to make them numb, to make them more prone to accepting a confident voice that's going to tell them, this is fine, trust me, we're out of it now. We've got this thing licked, Yeah, he
does it. He does it a lot better than you. I wish you were him, because yours is not nearly as convincing, Stephen. I wouldn't follow that voice anywhere. That does not sound smart, but he is an expert at it and has been for a long time. Yeah. I wanted to get to that book. Is this your most recent book? The Cult of Trump, a leading cult expert explains how the president uses mind control. You've made a number of media appearances in mainstream outlets, by the way. It's been well vetted by a wide range of experts and journalists. Yet, what has been the reaction to your book? from any sector of society, from media to the Trump people and so on, because it's a very provocative line of thinking, yet it's hard for me at least to argue with.
Right. And, it was a big deliberation whether I would do a book by that title, because I knew it would alienate the true believers. However, with my definition of cult and me being in a book called The Cult of Mac, that came out decades ago, my position is
on computers,
there are lots
Mac
of different
computers.
cults, but is it an authoritarian cult run by a malignant narcissist that's trying to make pseudo identities that are dependent and obedient on them? Or is it just a funky ideology where you have freedom to go in and out easily?
What is the conclusion? Which is it?
So I think the cult of Trump is, he has the stereotypical profile of cult leaders, which is malignant narcissism. And I compare him with Jim Jones and Sun Myung Moon and Hubbard and Koresh and a few other cult leaders. So he's always had a cult of personality, but now he's in charge of the most powerful office in the world. And he is demonstrating that he wants total loyalty or he's going to get rid of you. Or if there's any oversight, he's going to ignore any congressional subpoenas or tell his people to do this. But to get back to your question about the media, it's interesting because the meme cult of Trump is everywhere, and people kind of are like, yeah, of course it's a cult. But they haven't gone beyond the word to say, well, what actually does this mean? How will this actually inform us strategically how to go forward?
Right.
Because we keep expecting him to be normal, and the pundits keep saying, can you believe this? He's not normal. And I'm like, that's 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Let's move on. Now let's understand mind control. Let's understand how malignant narcissists operate, and let's strategically try to save our country's democracy and our rule of law. And it's not going to be buying into, well, let's do to them what they do to us. Then let's call the Trump believers stupid and crazy and foolish, like they said to me when I was in the Moonies. You're stupid. How could you believe he's the Messiah? Instead of understanding how people have been systematically unduly influenced into having phobias irrationally implanted in their minds, that unless they do what he says, terrible things are going to happen.
Yeah, and I want to unpack that, and I think that's probably the most important part of your actual practice and work is helping people out, helping family members out. I did an episode last week, which led me to finding your work, where, I was just talking to listeners of the show who have, I call it, maybe you have a better phrase or explaining it, lost somebody to conspiracy theories, a family member, a friend that they just can't even relate to or be close with anymore. And your work is helping, and your research is the best way to do it. Sometimes, it results in anger and we want to shame people and insult them. But the truth is, I have you here to help my listeners and myself understand how we can help any of these people either before they go too far down the road or once they have, to bring them back. But I do have one more question on this, on the Trump, the Cult of Trump book, which is, I wonder, how much you think that Trump, much less any of the other people who you've studied, these leaders and influencers, if you will, know what they're doing. Does Donald Trump actually understand the techniques that he is using to manipulate people, one of which is just flooding the space with constant content and rumor and conspiracy and lie and outrage? That's one tactic, I think. But does he know what he's doing? Do these other cult leaders, are they studied experts knowing how to affect behavior?
Good question. I get this question with other cults as well. And my experience is most cult leaders were in a cult themselves. And so they learned it organically and behaviorally. And I have a whole chapter on how he was raised in an authoritarian family system so he did not have secure attachment, which is the latest understanding and research of how malignant narcissists are formed. He was raised in a cultish group of Norman Vincent Peale that believed in prosperity gospel, and you believe it 100%, it's going to come true. So he was taught at an early age to do thought stopping. When people would say a criticism to him, he would dismiss it, because if you don't think it, then it's not real. And he continues to do that. I've heard pundits refer to him as Teflon, that nothing bothers him. But this is a dissociative technique, a thought-stopping behavior modification technique that he's learned to do. That said, I believe there are people who are influencing him who know very well about mind control techniques, like Vladimir Putin was a recruiter for KGB agents and had to understand how to groom people, how to find their weak spots, to threaten them or to give them things that they want, whether it's money or
not
fame.
To interrupt you, but I wonder what you think. Vladimir Putin, of course, is the most classic example, but every other nation has intelligence agencies who have departments, and their job is understanding psychology, understanding how to manipulate, including our friends, to get what they want from a trade deal or a negotiation or anything else. So let's
not forget the CIA too, Pete.
Forgive me, they're the best at it, I would imagine. Maybe not. Actually, sometimes we give them too much credit, but yes, of course,
they were one of the first to really spend a lot of time and money in the Cold War era to keep up with the Russians and the Chinese. And that's where the research that helped me wake up from the Moonies came, was the Chinese communist brainwashing research. It was that helped me have a foundation for understanding what happened to me. And when I sought out the people like Robert J. Lifton, he basically said, I just know this secondhand, but they did it to you, and you were a leader and you did it to other people. And what you're describing is far more sophisticated than what we studied. You should study psychology and explain it to us. And so for me, as a college dropout ex-Moonie with a broken leg, hearing a Yale psychiatrist who is the world's leading expert on Chinese brainwashing say, you should explain it to me, I was like, oh, I can do this.
So, one of the issues.
I wanted to heal, Pete. I wanted to understand, how did this work? How did they get me to believe the Holocaust was necessary because the Jews didn't accept Jesus, when I was raised a Jew and learned all about Hitler and the Nazis and how did it work? And I learned about hypnosis and I learned about behavior modification.
I can't recommend
I took the top models and I comprised my own model. It's called the BITE model. It's on my website at freedomofmind.com. But I organized it into a list of behaviors, behavior control techniques, information control techniques, thought and emotional control techniques.
Yeah, I've been reading that, and I just got to say, this show that I've been hosting for, in every iteration, 14 years now, 12 years really, is supposed to be as much as possible based on science. And I'm not a scientist or an educated person, but I try to find the best scientists and experts I can. And I think that you are one of those people. I mean, I really look, you base everything on the available science, and you've developed these ideas and techniques, and people really should go to your website. And if you know somebody who has lost somebody down the conspiracy path, you should contact Steven and work with him, because you really have developed this program and done a tremendous amount of research. But so leading to my next question, which is, I've read a lot of research where it says that when you give somebody all of the information they need, somebody who is a climate change denialist, you sit them down with a bunch of climate scientists, you tell them all the actual information, debunking these things that they've learned, and they don't change their mind. They actually believe it even more.
Facts do not work.
Cognitive dissonance, what role does it play, and how do we combat that?
Good question. So cognitive dissonance is a key concept, thoughts, feelings, behaviors. It was Leon Festinger's work in the 50s studying a UFO conspiracy cult, by the way. And when the spaceship didn't come to the mountain to take everybody, as the cult leader had predicted, he was surprised with his students why people believed more and not less. And he posited, and this has been validated in so many other studies, that we have we want to be aligned between our beliefs, feelings, and behaviors. And if we do an extreme behavior, we're going to rationalize the behavior and shift our belief and our feelings to be in alignment. And that's what my BITE model is based on, the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And I just added information control. So once you got those 4 components, you can pretty much analyze anything. But to answer your question, what I have found is that there are ways to empower people to think for themselves, but that's a very different goal than persuading someone, I'm right, you're wrong. You have stupid beliefs, Pete. Let me set you straight. It's going to make you defensive. It's going to distance you in terms of emotional warmth to me. But if I say to you, hey, Pete, you're an intelligent person. You would only do things to protect yourself and your family. I see your daughter.
Sorry, Steven. I'm in the middle of an interview. You're going to have to close the door. What do you need? It's on the table under the placemat. Yep, same place. Yeah. So, Steven, speaking of behavior control, I have to hide my daughter's phones until they have done everything they need to get them. And I don't know if that's working.
I'm a parent of a 17-year-old, and COVID has, changed the rules and everything. So I totally get it.
So you were sorry.
People need to have a process to help them think for themselves, to make up their own conclusions versus be in a right, wrong, black and white, all or nothing, good versus evil frame. And so the worst thing you can do if someone's in a mind control cult is yell at them, call them names, you're stupid, how could you believe this crap, etc. The best thing to say is, hey, Pete, I'd like to get to know you better. You're so smart. Tell me how you understand what's going on. And let's look at, our perspectives, and let's find common ground. And by the way, I'm open to changing my perspective if the facts, support it. And I'm curious, how about you? Are you open as well? Or are you going to be, committed no matter what? And then I teach them about social psychology. I share videos. I teach them about other groups that they would agree are mind control cults. So I'm building cases for them to start thinking about that intelligent people can believe really bad things or follow authorities that are illegitimate. For example, the Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in blood transfusions. Would you allow your kid to die if she was in a car accident, God forbid, because somebody said, well, the Bible says you should drain the blood from meat in the Old Testament. Is that something you'd allow yourself to die about?
Is that where it comes from?
Yeah.
How much difference is there between blood transfusions and anti-vaccination? That's also
exactly my point, and this is huge right now.
There's nothing in the Bible about vaccines, as far as I can think, even when we twist it.
No, not at all. There are instructions to the priests about if you have pus and whatever, you have to be isolated. That I have a quarantine thing, which is very wise.
How interesting.
They didn't get germs. They didn't understand all these things back then. But critically important for all of us, with COVID, is these entities with millions of dollars that are indoctrinating disinformation against vaccinations. So that at the point that we get a vaccination, they're going to think it's a conspiracy to take away their freedom or to poison them. So we have to, even though we don't have a vaccination yet, it's of critical importance for public health to figure out a strategy for millions of people to wake up to understand the science.
I just had a very scary thought, which is if Donald Trump loses the election, if he were to win the election, he would tout the vaccine because he needs people to get back to work and he needs a good economy. If he loses the election, he will probably be critical of and tell people not to get the vaccine because he doesn't care about anything or anybody. I'm guessing and people will listen to him. They do listen to him. I mean, people are drinking bleach. So, I mean, it's not like his words don't matter when it comes to the vaccine. I'm very worried about what side of it he's going to be on.
It's really, but I think one of my things that I realized in researching the book is that there are these very powerful entities that are cults that are influencing him. And many of them are at odds with each other. For example, the extreme libertarians and the extreme religious right that want to impose, anti-gay, anti-women's rights and influence the court that way. And so he's flip-flopping to try to cater to the people who are his puppeteers. And the bottom line, as I see it, is we need to have massive education about how to be a good citizen and how to think for ourselves and how to reality test and how to change the laws so that some of these social media platforms are not being used to harm the public. And
but that seems like
you were asking me about what's changed with the digital age. A lot, and people are being radicalized online. You don't need to bring them to an isolated retreat or make them shave their head,
right,
or wear a robe anymore. But you can hypnotize people online and indoctrinate them into really crazy conspiracy beliefs. And nobody's minding the store in the sense of saying, what's the public health issue here? And what regulations do we need to think about putting into place to hold people accountable for psychological rape?
Well, maybe I ended on psychological rape.
Sorry.
That's all right. I mean,
you have to have me back on now, Pete, so I can
next week, dude. Whenever you want. I prepared a lot for hours for this interview, and have not even gotten started. So whenever you're available, I want to continue this. I think your work. What I've learned is that your work is effective and very valuable, and there's a lot of respect in the places that I certainly search for it with your work. So I hope you will come back on very soon because, like I said, I have barely scratched the surface. But you are a good father. And you told me that you have your next appointment is with your son. I respect that, and I respect your time, and I appreciate that. Yeah. So let's talk again soon, sir.
I like it. See you soon.
Thank you. What did I tell you, Steve Hassan? You got to see his all these worksheets that he was holding up. I've got the video for that. I'll post that on YouTube in a couple days as well as I try to get these videos of the interviews up shortly after on the YouTube page. Freedomofmind.com is the website for my last guest, and I highly recommend you get his work and reference his work and maybe even hire him to help your family member get out of the crazy cult thinking if you've got one that they've fallen into. It's very sad, but I thought that was a very important, fascinating guest and conversation. Looking to do part 2 with him real soon. Great guy. Give him a follow on Twitter and check out his work online as well. And before I wrap up today's episode, I wanted to reach into the mailbag and read you some of what I've been hearing from listeners and subscribers. Randolph says that he lives up in an interesting district in Oregon, which you think of as a blue state, a more progressive state, but certainly there's a lot of rural areas. He says he lives in the place where Eamon Bundy is a hero. And Randolph writes me from the road. He says, it's different out here. Wearing a mask is basically the mark of the beast. Wearing a mask means you're a socialist. You love AOC and the Green New Deal. You want the nanny state. You want open borders. You don't think blue lives matter, yada, yada, yada. The point, Pete, is the facts, the benefits of wearing a mask don't matter. To most of my neighbors, everything you and Dean Obeidallah and Joshua Johnson on MSNBC said is just libtard spin, just as ridiculous as you think the righty spin from lunatics like Laura, Sean, Tucker, and Jesse is. It's a whole lot more important that Trump doesn't wear a mask. They know Fauci and Birx have sold out to the swamp, that the death counts are inflated, that the Democratic state governors are just dictators with their lockdown orders, that basically COVID-19 is really just a flu and has been promoted by the fake news media to defeat Trump's re-election. No matter how much information to the contrary is going to change 30% of Americans on this at all. I don't know what's scarier, that almost all my loved ones and neighbors don't wear a mask because I have constitutional rights to protect themselves and others they claim to love, or that we can't even agree in America that we have a global pandemic to fight against together and learn the lessons from other countries around the world where 100,000 of their citizens aren't dying from this thing. Randolph, always a privilege to spend time in your guest house of learning. I like that, Randolph, the guest house of learning. He also said he loved the live pods with Candidacy Davis and Eric Siegel for subscribers. And a lot of people like that. Got a lot of great feedback on the live podcast. Also, sad news to hear a couple listeners have contracted COVID-19. They're doing okay, but it's great to hear from those of you that have contracted this, to hear how you're dealing. But Megan emailed me and said, Pete, I hope your daughter is healing well. Of course, Julia fell on her arm and ended up in the ER on Sunday night. And I hope your family is coping and staying healthy, Megan says. I just thought I'd let you know that I managed to get myself infected. You probably remember I'm at a hospital in Minneapolis, and things have been nuts for us. My home unit was temporarily closed at the end of March, and a few weeks ago we opened a new unit, taking on patients who are more critically ill than we normally care for. The unit is literally called a disaster unit, which just makes me shake my head because honestly, everything about COVID is a disaster. A week and a half ago, I was exposed to a patient who had a false negative on a COVID test, then turned out to be positive. I was originally told I had to stay home until day 7 after my exposure, which time, if I was asymptomatic, I could return to work. I stayed home for one shift before I was called back to work because of, quote, critical staffing shortage. I still got swabbed on day 7, and my swab came back positive. So far, I've been asymptomatic, but I've obviously been benched. If I remain symptom-free, I'll be back to work next week. It sucks, though. I love that with my parents who are in their 70s, my husband, and 3 of them have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks because of proximity to me. They were all swabbed yesterday, but we don't have their results yet. Hopefully, they're all in the clear. I made my husband move upstairs to my parents' spare bedroom as soon as I'd known I'd been exposed, and I haven't. It's been more than a few seconds in the same room as my parents for weeks. Anyway, your show is always as great. Keep it up. Megan in Minneapolis. Cindy as well also contracted COVID-19. I'm thinking of both of you ladies, and I'll keep in touch. And if someone else that you know that is listening has contracted COVID-19, I'd love for you to share your experience and how you're dealing with it, how your family members are dealing with it. Carrie is the last email message I'll read. Carrie writes, Pete, take Monday off. You deserve it and certainly don't need permission. Hell, take off whenever you need to. We'll be here when you get back. Carrie, will you? I hope so. I was so worried when the show ended at SiriusXM that everybody would replace me, but at least 586 paying subscribers and thousands of more that are listening on other podcast apps have shown me that that's not the case. New people come in every day, and I couldn't be more excited about it. Carrie writes, Christian Finnegan has got to be my favorite regular guest, so I especially look forward to Fridays. He was always my favorite fill-in host when you took vacation in the past. He's super honest, forthcoming, able to articulate his thoughts so vividly, and uses such creative and apt analogies. You guys are awesome together. It's always such a great conversation. Keep up the discussion and race, too. I really enjoyed the interviews with doctors Christina Greer and Jason Johnson this week and last. You're doing a service to the people by including these voices and perspectives. Gary, did you hear my conversation with Bakari Sellers? If not, check that one out. Very good. He's written a new book that's so good. My Vanishing Country, it's called. Enjoy your holiday weekend, Carrie, is what Carrie said. Thank you. It's over now, but I still wanted to read that email. P.S. Listen to the end every day. So, Carrie, I hope you heard me read your email. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. or message me some other way on Twitter, most likely is the best way to get to it. Join the Facebook garden group, Stand Up Garden Club on Facebook, and maybe check out yoga on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. A lot of listeners hang out with us, 9 Eastern. Check out my wife's Facebook page, Valerie Vendrami, or message me, and I'll give you the code. It's $15. Everybody always has a good time. I'd love to see it there. All right, out of time. Gotta go. Gotta post this, baby. Thank you. I love you. Stay close. Stay connected. You're not alone. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much for supporting the podcast. We're out every single day. I've been in the garden a lot and checking out the Stand Up Garden Club on Facebook. It's a Facebook group, Stand Up Garden Club, over 800 members there. And so I'd love if you have one plant, many plants, you're a rookie or an expert, check that out. I will approve of your membership because I'm the admin. I created it. Also, Yoga Wednesdays. If you're listening this early in the morning, you want to join us for yoga. We're there every week at 9 o'clock. Val teaches virtual yoga, and I am her student, along with, it's always at least 10 people, sometimes a lot more. So I'd love to have you join us. Everybody pays $15 to Val, and that's awesome. She's so good at it. Really so impressed by watching my wife work virtually. They don't get to see her work because she's not here, but watching her now is amazing. Anyway, check that out. Check out the Stand-Up Garden Club, on Facebook groups. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And support this podcast, which is out daily, with a paid subscription at patreon.com/PeteDominic, or click the paid subscription link on the show notes. That's it. I'm out. I love you. Stay close. Stay connected. You're not alone. As we start to come out and things start to change a little bit, let's continue to support each other, talk to each other, and hear from each other. I'm here for you. We'll talk soon.